Hello, in this video, let's talk about the general idea of how to factor. To factor means to write as multiplication. So first thing to do is to write in standard form. And standard form means descending order of exponents. So for example, if I have some expression such as 3x to the fourth plus 5x squared plus 9, the highest power should come first, and then the next highest, and then the next, and so on. So that's the first step. Second is, once everything is arranged in the right order, then we factor out the greatest common factor. So, factor, GCF. So once we take out the GCF, then there would be only three possibilities left. Either 3 there were three categories. So the first category is there will be two terms, and in that category we have formulas. The only way to factor here is to use three special formulas. Either the difference of squares, which factors as a minus b, a plus b, and we will work with these later in a different video. The other one is the sum of cubes. So that's 3 to the power 3 with a plus in the middle. And that factors as a plus b, a squared minus a b plus b squared. And the last one is the difference of cubes. That's the cubes with a minus in the middle. And that factors as a minus b, a squared plus ab plus b squared. Now, if we have the other category is three terms. So three terms are quadratics, and the quadratics are usually written as ax squared plus bx plus c. And if a happens to be 1, we use one method, and if a happens to not be 1, then we use a different method. And the situation where the a is not 1, we break up the middle term into 2. So that means the b, which is the middle term, will get split up into two different parts, and that makes 4 terms instead of 3. And then the last category here is more than 3 terms. And the only method here is grouping. And grouping simply means we look at the terms in pairs and we try to see if the group has something in common, and then we go from there. So these are that's the main procedure for factoring. Now let's try to practice the first 2 steps, and then in a different video note we'll go through each one of these situations separately. So just for practice, let's factor this example. So 12x to the fourth plus 15x to the second. Now, is this written in descending order of the exponents? So looking at the variables, just the unknowns, the letters, is the highest power come first? Yes. The next highest is next, and so on? Yes. So that is written in the standard form. The second is to factor GCF. So that means the greatest common factor. That literally means if we break up the 12 into what it is, which is 2 times 2 times 3, and x to the fourth is x 4 times, and 15 is 3 times 5, and x twice, we look for the greatest common factor. So that literally means, what is the most in common? Well, 3 is in common between the numbers, and 2 x's are in common between the letters. So if we factor out the greatest common factor, which is 3x squared, what would be left? Well, 2 times 2 is 4, and then x times x is x twice, and then in the other term only 5 left. And so this is factored, and there is inside the parentheses, there is 2 terms, but these 2 terms do not fit into our template of the difference of squares. There are no cubes. These are not difference of squares or anything else, so that's the end of this factoring. The next example is, let's factor 6x to the 2 plus 3x plus 9x to the third. Now, this one is not written in the standard form because the highest power is not first. So rearranging in standard form, we have 9x cubed plus 6x to the 2 plus 3x. Now from here we factor out the greatest common term, and that is, looking at the numbers, what's the most in common? Well, between 9, 6, and 3, only 3 is in common. Looking at the x's, what's the most in common between the x? Well, there is 3 x's here, 2 of them there, and only 1 in the last term. So the most we can take from all of them is just this one that was in the last term, excuse me. And that leaves us with 3x to the 2. Now we can figure out what goes inside the parentheses, because when we multiply back, we should get all the original terms. So to get the first 9x cubed, what times 3x makes 9x cubed? Well, 3 times 3 makes 9, and x times x squared makes x cubed. That's why this is 3x squared. Now, 3x times what makes 6x to the 2? Well, that would be, to go from 3 to 6, that's a 2 and an extra x. And what times 3x makes 3x? Well, 1. 1 times 3 is 3, and x times 1 is x. So this is the factoring, and if inside the parentheses, if this is a square, so that's a quadratic, and we have 3 terms, leading number is not 1, and if there was a way to factor this, we would continue, but there isn't. So for this example, that's the end. And that's all for the first 2 steps. So these are the 2 steps we always follow before we decide how to use one of these other techniques. And we will talk about these techniques in a different note. Thanks for your time. Take care.